Namaste. Hello. Thank you so much for dropping by this video. In this moment, I just feel so delighted and happy to be making to be making a video. And it's, of course, my hope to be helpful. Some people have said that they are helpful, um, and they bring me so much joy. So I'm just going to keep on doing them as long as it seems like they're helpful and it brings joy. So I got a very interesting comment. So the person said, "Can I ask a question?" Blank, a particular author, says that no individual has ever become enlightened. He goes on to say, in essence, there are no individuals, no Ramana, no Muji, and no you or I. Only the one ego or mind that rises in the self. The mind being described as a spurious entity. Yet traditional Vedanta speaks of something which is not a state, but exists beyond all states, blissful, timeless, without beginning or end, and more importantly, is who we are. But who or what has ever experienced this bliss? No individual, no mind, no ego, because these things are all still appearing. We know we exist. This is self-evident. But the idea of something better than this, a kind of bliss-like state, has never happened to anyone or everything. The world is still turning, and we are still living and dying. Interesting Interesting question and a really good one, in my view. Thank you for asking. So first and foremost, um, what I just from the bottom of my heart, and I've sat with this question for a week, from the bottom of my heart, I would just beg everyone to stop reading um, non-dual stuff. Let me really clarify. To stop reading non-traditional, non-dual stuff. It just I don't even know where to begin. I think I'll begin where I always begin, is most non-traditional, non-dual stuff, and this is some non-traditional, non-dual stuff. It's a kind of self-inquiry. It's investigating into one's true nature. Ramana Maharshi, Adi Shankara were adamant, as is the Gita, that this will not succeed unless you are properly prepared. So, here's the thing. If you want to go read this stuff and think about it, and you're not properly prepared, and I've gone over the proper preparations multiple times, but the long and short of it is, in essence, you have a monk-like mentality. Not from a depressed place, but you're just disinterested in the world. You're deeply devoted to God. You have one-pointedness of mind. That's kind of the short version. Then you can start reading some of this stuff, but then don't read the traditional stuff. There are so many people who just sort of wax poetic about non-dual stuff, and it just turns into mental masturbation. It really It really does. Um, so I would just beg everyone, don't read non-dual stuff that's not like the exact words of a master or a classic scripture like the Gita. I have my favorite, or someone who's in a lineage, and this person is not in a lineage, who has like been properly trained how to impart this information to other people from the bottom of my heart for your well-being, because bad non-duality, it's not even non-duality, it's very dangerous. It's fine to just read it once and forget about it. It probably do nothing, but if you take it seriously, the other thing is you have to have a guru. Who's your guru? The person asking this question. It's like It's like trying to climb Mount Everest with no experience on your own reading a book. You're going to get killed, right? Like someone who had it's so those are just my two from my heart to the person who asked or anyone. Don't fuck around with non-duality unless you have a guru. And if you're still going to ignore that and you're going to fuck around with it, then at least read the traditional stuff. Like read the Gita, read Shankara. They didn't mess around. You know, a classic text in one line of a classic text, they'll give you truth that you can think about all day long, and it's systematic. So, with that said, back to this question. Very simply, this person asked, but who or what has ever experienced this bliss? That's why it's because of questions like this that I almost went crazy and killed myself. It's because non-traditional teachers have an incomplete teaching. And once I found a traditional teacher, then I was like, oh, boom. They'll give you the model. They'll give you the map for climbing Mount Everest. So in traditional Advaita Vedanta, the mind does experience this bliss through training. Through training, so in traditional Advaita, there's they talk about the human being in terms of there's 3 bodies or 5 bodies. The 5 bodies is a little more complicated, so we'll leave that aside. 3 bodies: the causal body, the physical body, and the subtle body. The subtle body is the mind, the emotions, the personality. So and underneath all of that is the self. Now, the problem resides in the subtle body. The subtle body turns towards objects, including thoughts and emotions, and then thinks that I am those objects. But then when the subtle body, through training and practice, turns away from those things and towards the self, then the subtle body does experience this bliss and happiness. Maybe more accurately, the subtle body then gets out of the way. But it really has to do with this: which direction is the subtle body turning? Is it turning outward or inward? When it turns inward, then yes, the personality experiences that bliss. And when it turns, and so this is why please stay clear of teachers who don't. So this person says, but who or what has ever experienced this bliss? No individual, no mind, no ego, because these things are still appearing. So now you're teaching, and your teaching is in contradiction to what Adi Shankara teaches. Ramana didn't really get so much into this, but Adi Shankara sure did. So now what you're teaching, which is probably something you learned from a non-traditional Neo-Advaita teacher, is now in contradiction to what Adi Shankara taught. So go start your own tradition. I'm not mad at you, but I am. Bad non-duality is very harmful and very dangerous. It's cultish. It's a mental cult. And the way I broke free from the cult of it was I studied the Gita. I studied Ramana holistically, meaning I didn't just study the popular quotes. I studied to the best of my ability all of it. And a lot of what Ramana said contradicts, and how he behaved and lived contradicts the popular version of him. And so I just sat with it until all the pieces came together. And then I also studied, oh boy, my mind has gone blank. Um, The Essence of Enlightenment by James Schwartz, who is a lineage traditional teacher, who I can recommend his book. I don't know him well enough to, uh, you know, recommend him to have a one-on-one, and he really doesn't do that. But his book, so far as I can tell, his book is in line with the teachings of Adi Shankara and the Gita. So that's kind of where I'm at. Like, if people just want to make, that's where I'm at. Is it's like, you know how they talk about like you have to have standards in relationships, right? I've got my standards now. And if you don't meet my standards, I'm not even going to go on a date with you. Meaning, if a teacher isn't teaching what's in line with Adi Shankara, I won't listen to a single fucking word they say. You couldn't pay me $1 million to take seriously the teachings of a non-traditional, non-duality teacher, aka a Neo-Advaita teacher. You couldn't pay me any sum of money in the world because it would drive me crazy, and it'll drive anyone else crazy who takes it seriously. Not anyone, like 99.9%. There's a rare person out there who might read with this comments that I started with and just wake up. That person is ripe. So thank you for asking. It's a fascinating question, and I'm sorry. The Let's see. One other thing. It's just we know we exist. This is self-evident, but the idea of something better than this, a kind of bliss-like state, has never happened to anyone or anything. Bullshit. Bullshit, 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 bullshit. Ramana Maharshi described his own experience very clearly. There was one moment when he had one life, and another moment when a new life began. When, as he said, a current, he became aware of a current that, yes, had always been there, but something was different. That's more Neo-Advaita nonsense. Nonsense, nonsense, nonsense. Half the picture. Neo-Advaita always will give you half the picture. Yes, the self is always there. Yes, the self is always experiencing the bliss. But then it becomes obsessed with that, and it ignores the other half of the picture, that in time, there's a moment where there's varying levels of awareness of this, and then there's a moment where there's awareness of this that begins and never ends. And it's described as happening in the subtle body. So if, you know, the person who posted this, if you, it kind of feels like you were trying to teach, which is fine. I went through that phase. And I'm not trying to put you down, but like if you don't, what do I want to say? It's like too many concepts. It's like, oh my God, there's so many concepts and teachings here. And I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I just, it just helps me to stay sane, to deconstruct Neo-Advaita. So that's what I do. And then I hopefully point people towards the real deal. And maybe I could be a little more tolerant and patient. And it's just that arrogance is so dangerous. Thinking you know something is so dangerous. Thinking that when I think I know something, uh, and so that's kind of ironic because I've just shared all this stuff, but what I've shared is information, right? Like I've shared information about what Adi Shankara taught, what traditional Advaita taught, what da da da. But the problem is when the ego, and I've done it, I do it every day, like, oh, I understand how the universe works, or oh, I get it. It's just it's ego arrogance. And it's interesting. I've been hanging out uh with some people who practice Vashishta Advaita, or no, Achinta Beta Beta, which is a type of qualified non-duality. And they say that one of the dangers of Advaita, of the non-dual path, is arrogance. And it's really true. It's one of the dangers. I got so arrogant, and I see it over and over and over and over again. It's one of the prime pitfalls of the path of Advaita, really, is becoming arrogant. Because you're like, I am God, I am the self. In essence, you're saying, I am perfect. And then to boot, then there's this like, oh, and I know something. Very dangerous. And got me in a lot of trouble, and I'm still recovering from it. And hope this was helpful. Thank you so much. Didn't mean to be so harsh on the person who commented, but some of this is just Neo-Advaita nonsense. And yeah, some of it really doesn't seem like a question. It does seem like trying to teach. Yeah. Thanks so much for joining in. Take care.